Twice nominated for the International Bluegrass Music Association's Banjo Player of the Year award, Gina Furtado began touring up and down the East Coast in her tween years with her siblings. Earning countless ribbons from fiddler conventions, a strong reputation in the regional bluegrass scene, and a stamp from Bluegrass Today as absurdly talented. The Bluegrass Situation says it's no surprise that her songs showcase her swift and graceful picking, but their album also reveals her to be a graceful singer and insightful songwriter. Gina, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Josh.
Yeah, you and any of your kin are obviously at Bright Box a lot. So in the past year, I felt like I've been excommunicated from the family. I haven't seen anybody. It's been terrible.
Oh, it's been so sad not to be able to go to the Bright Box. I walk by all the time and it's just tragic, but
Yeah, we started
can't
doing
wait to
funny
see
things
you.
on the marquee as like a reaching out of the world. So that's like my
Yeah.
outlet now is just making jokes on the marquee. You gotta do what you gotta do.
Okay, I'm gonna have to try to notice that next time. Cool.
So that's the thing about COVID though. Bluegrass often transcends just the music, and instead it's really a complete experience, right? And as
Yeah.
live performances were non-existent last year, how did that affect you, right? Like how did that affect bluegrass for you? Is the question that I had to ask.
Honestly, it was a great kind of change of pace for me. I totally enjoyed it. Just getting to step back from so much traveling and just being so busy. Of course, now over a year later, I'm busy again doing other things. We find a way to fill our schedules, but initially like the first couple of months, all last summer really, I was hiking a lot, kayaking all the time, really getting out in nature, and as a musician, an artist of any kind, I think that is super beneficial. So I really enjoyed just like, okay, I can't perform right now. I can't do any of like the businessy work that's involved with being a musician and having a band. I just have to like go out in nature and be away from people, and it was kind of a retreat. So I am one of those people that like really enjoyed have enjoyed all the shutdowns in a lot
Yeah.
of ways.
Well, I think that's important too to say that one, nature is ingrained a lot in bluegrass and where we come from. And the other part of it is a lot of people start with bluegrass in intimate settings, right? So you weren't on a stage playing to 500 people, but even if you were at home picking and playing with people, that's still a big part of bluegrass, I think. And
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And I got to do that more too, which was like just have weekends off where I'm like, around a campfire with some friends playing music, which I hadn't done in so long because of being busy, like playing shows and things.
yeah, it was definitely a recharge of the batteries for me too. That being said, I'm
Yeah.
ready to get back at it. But
Yeah,
like I
me
said,
too.
I
But
I I enjoyed some weekends off. I cannot lie about that.
yeah, for
So, speaking
sure.
about the musical experience and how it never really leaves you, we usually ask a lot of the musicians about like their earliest childhood memory of music or what got them into music. But I can't ask you that because you were born into it. And that's what I was talking to
Yeah.
Bill about was, what is an influence when a lot of people think it's nature or nurture, right? It's your DNA, it's your upbringing. But I
Mhm.
mean, that was kind of decided from you from the get-go, right? Can you talk a little bit about your rich family history of music and how it's been for you?
Sure. Actually, though, I really wasn't born into it. I'm the second oldest, right, of nine kids. And we were definitely like, we all got very much into playing music. But since I was the second oldest, I vividly remember my mom running into a family friend at the grocery store and her saying, like, well, I'm teaching piano lessons. And my mom said, oh, really? Like, let's get her signed up. That would be so fun. And I was 5 years old. But I distinctly remember that moment. And that's when it all changed because all of us started taking, my older brother started taking music lessons then. And then everybody younger, just as they got old enough, started taking lessons. And then it just became, a huge part of just our lifestyle,
So
going
the
to festivals,
lineage,
playing different
the
music.
lineage starts with you then. You are the beginning
Pretty
of the
much,
family.
yeah. Me and my
Yeah.
older brother started at the same time. I was 5 and he must have been 7. And we started taking piano lessons, and then it just kind of went from there. Eventually, I moved on from piano to playing the banjo, and my siblings who had been playing violin, taking violin lessons, started playing fiddle. So we got into bluegrass that way.
So Do you remember what made you really want to shift from piano to banjo? Like, where did we go from learning Bach to learning Bill Monroe?
Oh yeah, because piano lessons, like it did a, it was very beneficial for me as a musician to learn all that stuff so young, but it was like just not my personality. Like I never really enjoyed doing the lessons, although now I see how beneficial they were. It's like go to piano lessons and it's like very prim and proper and like just just not my style. So per my uncle's request, who is a fiddle player, we went to the Galax Fiddlers convention, and I saw the banjo, and it was just like,
That's all she
you know,
wrote.
it was yeah, it was like the brunt of all the bad jokes, and it was like kind of considered like I don't know, it's got an aura about it that's kind of whole lot different than the piano.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I
I
was
think we're
attracted
all,
to that. It was loud. It was considered obnoxious, and
and it was
I
right
like
up your alley, right?
yeah, right up my alley.
Well, and I think that's something that we've got to talk about is, you've worked with Brightbox and put on two hugely successful events that highlighted a bunch of females in bluegrass other than just yourself in the Shenandoah Valley.
Hmm.
And while many times women can still be, underrepresented in the genre or maybe not as recognized, can you share with us your thoughts and your experience with bluegrass and being a woman and being a banjo player now that I'm hearing that that's the butt of the joke too? So,
Right. Yeah, it's not a ladylike instrument, evidently, but yeah. So I mean, we're in like a what I consider to be like a very correctional phase of having, like 50 years ago, there were way fewer women involved in bluegrass. They were home watching the kids while the men were off playing. So I've had great experiences. Like most men in the industry have been so welcoming and so wonderful. But I would say the things that I do still experience all the time are, like I played in a band with another guy that had young children. So people would ask about us, when we're meeting them at the record table and such. And he had young kids and I have young kids, but it was always the question came to me like, well, who's watching your kids at home? But it never happened to him.
right.
So things like that, it was always like, huh? And then, like the IBMA nominations, that was like a huge deal for me when I was a kid. Like that was like what I dreamed about. It was like getting an IBMA award or getting nominated. And this one really hurt, but like I got the nomination the first time, and one of my friends said, "Oh yeah, I think people are really making an effort to nominate women," and that's a bummer because it's like, well,
Right.
I thought for a minute there that maybe it was because I played well, but so there's still things like that are unfortunate, or people saying like commenting on appearance, which is really frustrating when you're just literally just trying to play music because you have developed a skill that you love.
Right. Well, and I think what you touched on is important, and I would agree with you that getting that award would be in spite of and not in consideration of you being a woman because
I know you would
everyone
hope so.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And everyone that I talked to in bluegrass, in a good way, most people immediately refer to someone's chops at playing music or what they like or don't like about them as a musician.
Yeah.
A lot of what I've seen in bluegrass has never been, oh, he wears high-end clothes or he wears fancy boots. He's a fake bluegrass guy. And it's always about if
Right.
they can play or not.
Oh
And I've
yeah.
met, and I think that's where I love bluegrass so much is that ethic because I've met like punk bluegrass guys and rock and roll guys that got into bluegrass, or like Jack will play a cover of a rock and roll song during a bluegrass
Right.
set. So I've always loved that bluegrass really was, in my experience, if you could play or not, and if you had the soul for it or not, it really wasn't what you look like.
Right. Yeah, exactly. There's so much emphasis on skill, you
Hmm.
know, technical skill. So,
Right. Well, and like you said, maybe it's also the region that we're in, but like, with Linda Lay or with you,
mhm.
people hold those names in high regard. I've really never heard, again, knock on wood, a condescending comment about women in bluegrass because we're so thankful that we have so many talented people here that,
Yeah,
man or woman, we're living it
Winchester's
up.
got a lot. Yeah. Yeah, I
One,
agree. Yeah, that's why I say like we're in this amazing correctional phase where people are not thinking in those terms anymore, but occasionally there's little things that come up that are my daughter won't have to deal with any of that probably. I hope.
Right. Or in such an extended family, there's a lot of people they're going to have to deal with if they have such a negative opinion, right? Like that's
Right.
another great thing about bluegrass is in a lot of ways there's a big family and network there. So I'm
Hmm.
sure more people I know would defend your honor than remember that you're a woman.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I
So
appreciate
no,
it.
with COVID, I mean, you have been saying busy at least somewhat, right? Like the Gina Furtado project just released the instrumental single, your rendition of Kansas City Railroad Blues, which is a
Yeah.
great rendition of it, by the way.
Thanks.
Um, so the question is, what was that like recording? I know you've moved around a few players, right? You have a new bass player, and then what's
Hmm.
next, right? If COVID's on the wind down, what is your wind up? Where are we going?
We have some shows coming up. I'm of the mindset right now to do quality over quantity when it comes to booking. So we've got some really great shows coming up. We're going to Iowa and Kansas in June, um, and Georgia, and we just got a few things. And I'm just not trying to do like book a bunch of router gigs for the better ones. I'm going to Washington State in the fall, um, North Carolina. So we've got a few things speckled here and there, and I'm not trying to book a ton of stuff. Again, going back to COVID, and I learned like I kind of like having some weekends off sometimes. Um, so we have some shows coming up, and we have a bunch of new singles that are already in the can, ready to go. We just kind of space them out, a couple months at a time. So this most recent one, Kansas City Railroad Blues, will be followed with, I'm not sure which one yet, but we've got several ready to go.
It's a good problem to have, not knowing which one you want to release yet, right?
I know.
Not about recording it, not about getting it right. It's just which one do I feel like putting out this week?
Yeah, well, that's where we have this great label that is just so wonderful, and they take care of all that stuff. We just go and record, and then they have uh, good reasons to believe certain songs are better to release at certain times or whatever, but they handle all that stuff, which is great.
That's awesome because a lot of artists I know can be really good at being a business person or really good at being an artist, but sometimes it's hard to do both. And sometimes it's almost not fair to ask you to do both when you're, like you said, maybe on the road 100 days last year. So finding out that you have that network and that support system and someone you trust to give you that inference is like allows you to maybe plow ahead with all the stuff that you like to do more so than plan social media post, right?
Yes, I completely agree. So much easier.
Well, that's awesome. Well, I'm excited to hear it. Like I said, if anyone hasn't, I'm sure we'll put a link in the description to your latest single, which, like I said, correct me if I'm wrong, it is a Bill Monroe one, right? That's your rendition of, or
Yep, Kansas City Railroad Blues.
well, it's a
And it's got a
beautiful
bunch of
rendition.
different versions out there. So that
Yeah,
was a fun one to kind of figure out like how we wanted to do it because
right.
there's no real tried and true way to do it.
Well,
With a
that's
lot
why
of
I wanted
bluegrass
to
songs, it's got to be a
get.
certain way, the classic ones. But this one had some freedom to do what we wanted, so we kind of made it some swing style in it, which
Mhm.
is kind of part of our sound. So
Yeah, well, that's why I wanted to ask, and I make sure to call it a rendition, is because in no way is there a one for one cover. And then
mhm.
two, that playfulness with it really does give it your own appeal and your own style to it. So I don't think
Yeah, I
anyone
hope
will
so.
snake
Thank
it.
you.
Mhm. Good. Well, again, I hope that we're one of your quality gigs in the future. And if not,
I
I'll
can't wait. Yeah.
fly to Washington to see you, I guess, twist my arm, right? Um, but it's good talking to you. I'm glad that you're well. And, I hope to see you soon.
Yeah, thanks so much, Josh.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
I went out late one night beneath the trees black against the sky. My heart could not find rest, still ringing with the battle cry from the world outside. I had to catch my breath. Believe me if you want, I'm just telling you the things I saw. I sat crying by the river's edge, heard an anthem rise, a stubborn pledge from the waters and the mountains and the stars, saying we are love and they can't stop us. We are love and they can't stop us. wide. Birds had gathered all around me. A fox crept in without a sound. He made himself at home right by my side. And they said, we are love and it can't stop us. We are love and it can't stop us. Believe me if you want, I'm just telling you the things I saw. Tune I recognized. I heard it when my neighbor waved hello. The cashier with the smiling eyes, the mother when her baby cries, the mailman always brings the dog a bone.